He proposed to me with a ring I designed for his ex. Then she showed up at the engagement party. There's a strange kind of magic in sketching something that doesn't yet exist. A quiet intimacy between paper, pencil, and possibility. That day, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Vestafine jewelry, hitting the velvet trays of loose gemstones like spotlighted promises. I was hunched over my work table, hair messily clipped up, a latte gone cold beside me. I was designing a ring, not for a client, not for myself, just for the feeling, for the idea of it. I imagined a woman, strong, luminous, unapologetically herself. Someone who knew her worth without needing to declare it. The ring would mirror that, a slender platinum band, twisted like threads of light, holding a single oval sapphire in a sunburst of smaller diamonds. No traditional solitaire, no cliché, just elegance and strength. "Wow," came a familiar voice behind me. I turned, startled. Ryan. He stood in the doorway, smiling that easy, crooked smile that always made me forget how to breathe for a second. Tall, in his usual soft gray blazer, and that watch he never took off. An architect's watch, sleek and over-designed. "You scared me," I said, placing a hand to my chest. "What are you doing here so early?" He stepped in, eyes drifting to the ring sketch still in front of me. "Thought I'd pick you up. Grab sushi, unless you're in the middle of Brilliance." I gave a shy laugh. "Hardly. It's just a concept piece, no client, just something I felt like doing." Ryan leaned over the desk, inspecting the sketch. His eyes, dark and thoughtful, scanned every curve and shadow. He said nothing for a beat too long. "It's perfect," he said finally. I shrugged, self-conscious. "Thanks. No, Wanda, I mean it. It's beautiful. And original. It looks like you. Kind of." I looked up, surprised. "Me?" He nodded. "If you were a ring, this would be it. Powerful. Unique. Quietly bold." My cheeks flushed. Compliments from Ryan always felt more. He had this way of saying things that made you feel like the only person in the room. Like he meant it, even if later you wondered whether he meant it the way you thought he did. I flipped the sketchbook closed. "Anyway, it's just playing around." He tapped the cover of the sketchbook. "Mind if I take a photo?" "What?" "For inspiration." "You inspire me." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when does architecture and jewelry overlap?" He smirked. "Since I met you." God, he was smooth. We left the studio just as the city lights were starting to flicker on. He held my hand as we walked, and I remember thinking how right it all felt. Ryan made me feel seen, maybe even special, and if he seemed guarded sometimes, a little too perfectly put together, I told myself it was part of his charm. He asked about the ring again during dinner. What stone I would use, why I chose a twisted band, what I thought it symbolized. I told him about strength, about light, about connection that holds through storms. He listened closely. Later that night, as I curled into his side on my couch, I remember thinking, maybe this isn't just a sketch. Maybe it's the start of something bigger. I didn't know then that the ring I'd drawn would become real, or that it wouldn't be for me. Not really. Not first. The city stretched out below us like a glittering mosaic, every window a glowing star in the skyline. We were on the rooftop of Aurelia, the kind of place where the wine came in crystal glasses and the waiters moved like dancers. Soft jazz floated through the air, the kind that makes everything feel like a scene from an old movie. Ryan had been quiet all evening, in that intense, thinking too hard way he sometimes got when designing a project. I thought maybe something at work was bothering him. He only smiled when I asked, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Just appreciating the view, he said. I blushed, sipping my wine, pretending to believe him. Dessert arrived, chocolate soufflé, split neatly down the middle, with a candle flickering in the center. And then it happened. Ryan stood up. My heart skipped, then thudded. He reached into his blazer pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and dropped to one knee. People at nearby tables gasped. One of the waiters clapped a hand to his chest. I felt my soul leave my body for a second. "Wanda," Ryan said, voice steady but eyes burning, "I never believed in fate, but then I met you, and everything changed. You're everything I never knew I needed. You make me want more, to be more. Will you marry me?" He opened the box. Inside was the ring. My ring. The exact one from my sketchbook. Platinum band, the twisted sunbeam design, the sapphire glowing like a promise in a storm. My breath caught. "How? I don't," I stammered, staring at the ring. "I remembered that design you showed me," Ryan said quickly. "It stayed with me. I had it made, through a custom jeweler, through a friend of a friend. I wanted it to be perfect." My hands were trembling as he slid it onto my finger. It fit. Of course it fit. I'd drawn the proportions for a woman like me. Applause erupted around us. A nearby couple cheered. My friends at the corner table, Becca and Lila, stood up shouting yes. Before I even realized I had nodded. Yes, I finally breathed. "Yes, I'll marry you." Ryan stood, pulling me into a kiss that felt both dreamlike and oddly rehearsed. People were clapping. Cameras flashed. One waiter wiped away a tear. It was the kind of proposal little girls dream about. And yet, there was something strange beneath the joy. A flutter of something I couldn't name. The way the ring shimmered in the candlelight gave me déjà vu. Not just from my sketch, from something deeper. The twist of the band. The specific cut of the sapphire. The exact angle of the prongs. All so precise. So memorized. Ryan noticed my hesitation. "You okay?" He whispered against my hair. I nodded too quickly, just overwhelmed. "It's perfect." He kissed me again, and for a moment, I let myself fall into it. Into the fantasy of being chosen, wanted, loved so deeply someone would build a ring from your imagination. But a voice in the back of my head, small but persistent, asked, "Why that ring? Why exactly that design? Why did it feel used?" My apartment smelled like lavender and warm vanilla. Comfort scents. The ones I always lit after big emotional days, like tonight. I was still wearing the ring. It sparkled each time I moved my hand, as if it knew it had a job to do now. I should have been basking in the glow of my engagement, planning color palettes, calling my mom, posting carefully filtered photos of the proposal to make everyone jealous. But instead, I was scrolling through Ryan's laptop. He'd left it on the coffee table, half open. He told me I could use it if I needed to send a few files for a last-minute jewelry order. He even gave me the password weeks ago. Something simple like Blueprint 34. Typical architect. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I really wasn't, until I clicked into a folder titled Barcelona Tot Project. I thought maybe it had inspiration photos. He once said he wanted to design something in Spain. But most of the files were old photos, personal ones. And one caught my breath mid-lung. It was Ryan, younger by maybe 2 or 3 years, a little more scruffy, wearing a soft navy sweater I'd never seen. He was kneeling, holding a box. A velvet box. The box. I clicked to zoom in. My heart pounded as the image sharpened. Inside was a ring. Not exactly the same. The band was thinner, the gem a slightly paler sapphire. But the shape. The sunbeam twist. The prongs I designed to look like little waves. It was my design. But from before I met him, I blinked. Closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I grabbed my coat, texted Tiff, and walked into the night. "You are telling me," Tiff said slowly, sipping her second Negroni, "that Ryan had your ring design in his life before he met you?" "Basically," I muttered, stirring my drink so hard the ice rattled like tiny bones. We were at Covet, a cozy downtown bar that tried really hard to look like a speakeasy. Dim lighting, velvet chairs, ironic jazz versions of 90 seconds pop songs. Tiff fit in perfectly here. Red lips, big earrings. She looked like trouble in the best way. I looked like someone who just realized her engagement might be a rerun. I'm not saying he copied it, I added quickly. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence? Tiff raised a brow. Girl, you designed that ring from your soul. You told me you were trying to channel loyalty and light and, what was it? An unbreakable bond formed in fire. I groaned. I was being poetic. You were being you. Which means he's either psychic or he's reusing a ring from a past life. That's when she paused. Wait, did he ever mention a girl named Sophie? I froze. No. Why? Tiff looked at me, then down at her glass. I didn't think anything of it before, she said. But last year, one of Ryan's co-workers brought her up at a gallery opening. I was there with Lila. He said something like, Ryan hasn't been the same since Sophie left. We thought she was a client or something. My mouth went dry. What else did he say? Not much. Just that Ryan was crazy about her. That she disappeared, no warning. That he took it hard. I stared at the melting ice in my drink. Sophie. A name I'd never heard. A woman I didn't even know existed, yet suddenly felt closer to me than any other person in Ryan's world. A woman who might have worn a version of my ring. Before it was mine. Or maybe, just maybe, it was never really mine at all. I was supposed to be designing pendants. That was the plan. I'd set aside Sunday afternoon for work, my little sacred bubble of tea, soft music, and deep focus. But instead, I was 4 years deep into someone else's life on Instagram. Her name was Sophie. Her profile was public. Not that I was proud of how quickly I'd found it. Just one tagged photo in an old architecture firm's gallery post. And suddenly there she was. Sophie Levesque. A name that sounded like red wine and French film. Her bio read, actress, dreamer, based in Paris. Followed by a string of emojis. A mask, a dove, a star. I scrolled. Theater stages. Cobblestone streets. Black and white selfies with wild hair and dramatic eyeliner. Her captions were poetic, sometimes pretentious. We are made of echoes. The moon remembers. Things like that. But what made my stomach tighten was how familiar she felt. She had long auburn hair. Like mine. She wore delicate gold hoops. Like mine. She posted about her favorite perfume, Sandal Bloom by Vira. My exact scent. The one Ryan said smelled like sunlight on skin. And in one photo, blurry but visible, a tiny tattoo peeked out from behind her left ear. A thin line drawing of a bird in flight. My fingers brushed my own tattoo as if to confirm it was still there. Same spot, different design, but close. Too close. I leaned back in my chair, the screen glowing softly in the growing twilight. Was I her? Or worse? Was I a version of her? A replacement? A ghost resurrected in slightly different packaging? My phone buzzed. Ryan. Ryan, want me to bring dinner? Sushi or Thai? Me, either's fine. Ryan, you okay? Me, just tired. Long day. Ryan, I'll bring wine too. See you soon, babe? I stared at the screen. Then I opened the camera on my laptop and looked at myself. Really looked. Same hair, same perfume, same vibe. Maybe Ryan had a type. Maybe everyone did. But this wasn't a type. This was uncanny. This was a mirror. Later, when Ryan walked in with takeout and wine and that easy, breezy charm of his, I almost didn't say anything. But it burned too loud in my chest. Who is Sophie? I asked. He stopped in the kitchen, plastic bag halfway to the counter. Slowly turned to face me. I hated how calm he looked, like he'd practiced. He set the bag down. She was someone I cared about. A long time ago. And the ring? I asked. The photos? I didn't lie to you. Not an answer. He walked over and sat beside me. Too close, too warm. Wanda, he said gently. You are not Sophie. Could have fooled me, I whispered. You're you, he said. You're real. She was beautiful, yes, but she was chaos. She left. Why didn't you tell me? He looked down at his hands. Because I didn't want to bring her into this. What we have is ours, not hers. I wanted to believe him. But in that moment, sitting there with the scent of my own perfume circling the room, I couldn't help but wonder if he'd really let go of Sophie, or if I was just playing her part better than she did. The evening started like a scene from a movie. Ryan's parents' house was transformed into something out of a magazine spread, soft fairy lights twinkling through the garden, the smell of fresh flowers floating in the air, and a smooth jazz quartet playing softly in the background. The big living room was filled with smiling faces, elegant dresses, and tailored suits. Everyone clinked their glasses filled with sparkling champagne, laughter bubbling up like the fizzy drinks themselves. I was wearing the dress Ryan picked out for me, a sleek midnight blue number that hugged just right, making me feel like the center of the universe. My fingers still tingled from the ring on my hand, the ring I had designed, now sparkling like a promise. For a moment, I let myself forget the gnawing feeling in my stomach, that whisper of doubt that I'd tried to ignore for weeks. Ryan was by my side, smooth and charming as ever. But I noticed the flicker of something else in his eyes. Maybe nerves? Or guilt? I wasn't sure. The crowd gathered near the makeshift stage as Ryan's father stepped up with a glass raised. To Ryan and Wanda, he toasted, his voice warm. May your future be as brilliant as this ring and as strong as your love. Glasses clinked, the room erupted in cheers, and I smiled, though part of me felt like a fragile glass teetering on the edge. Then, through the crowd, a sudden bush. A ripple of whispers, and there she was. Sophie, tall, statuesque, wearing a white dress that looked like it belonged on a runway. Her auburn hair was perfectly styled, her eyes sharp and confident. She moved like she owned the room, and maybe she did. The music stopped. Ryan stiffened beside me. I heard her voice before I saw her mouth move. Sorry I'm late, Sophie said, her tone casual but with an edge that sliced right through the sparkling air. But I couldn't miss this. All eyes turned to her. My heart slammed against my ribs. She stepped closer, like she was walking back into a scene that had never really ended. I forced my smile, trying to keep my voice steady. Hi, Sophie, I said. I wasn't expecting you. Ryan swallowed hard. His jaw clenched. He started, but Sophie cut him off with a subtle smile. Ryan, you never told me she was here, she said, looking me over with a faint smirk. The girl who designed your perfect ring. A ripple of confused murmurs swept through the guests. I felt like the floor was slipping away beneath me. Was this some kind of joke? Or a trap? Ryan reached for my hand, squeezing it like an anchor. We didn't plan for this, he said quietly. Sophie's smile widened. Oh, I know, she said. But sometimes the past has a way of showing up uninvited. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. I caught my reflection in a nearby window. The woman smiling on the outside, but inside, I was unraveling. Why are you here? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Sophie's eyes locked onto mine. To remind you, and him, that nothing is ever really finished. I looked to Ryan, searching his eyes for answers, for reassurance, for any sign that this wasn't some cruel game. But all I saw was the man who had just proposed to me with my design. A man tangled in secrets I hadn't yet unraveled. The engagement party had turned into something else entirely. And I knew, deep down, this was only the beginning. I didn't move. I couldn't. The room felt like it was underwater, all sound muffled, all movement slow and distorted. My ears rang with the echo of Sophie's words, and the warmth from the champagne and fairy lights evaporated into a cold, empty pressure in my chest. Sophie's gaze shifted, from my face to my left hand. Her expression changed. She stepped forward, one slow, deliberate step at a time. Is that, she said, her voice quieter now, almost reverent. Is that the ring? Gasps rippled through the guests like a domino effect. The low hum of murmurs started building again, people turning to each other, unsure whether this was drama, gossip, or a very public mistake. I looked down at my hand. At the ring. My ring. Or at least the one I thought was mine. Ryan moved fast, putting an arm protectively around me, but it felt more like a cage than comfort. "Sophie," he said, his voice too smooth, too controlled. "You're making assumptions. Let's not—" "No," she cut in, tilting her head slightly. Let's talk about the design." She stepped even closer now, and the jazz band awkwardly stopped pretending to play. "You said it was inspired by constellations," she said, addressing me now. 3 diamonds. Polaris at the center. "You said that symbolizes loyalty, right? Steadfastness?" My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" I asked. Ryan's grip tightened. "I told her." He blurted, too quickly. "Once. A long time ago." Sophie laughed. Not a happy laugh. It was sharp, hollow, theatrical. "Don't lie now, Ryan. You brought me that design in December. I remember because it was snowing, and you said you wanted something that captured light in darkness. That phrase stuck with me." My knees almost gave out. "December?" That was 3 months before he asked me to work on that concept for a future client. 3 months before we even got serious. Someone in the crowd pulled out their phone. I saw the screen light up. Recording. I didn't blame them. This wasn't an engagement party anymore. It was a car crash in formal wear, and nobody could look away. "I designed this ring," I said slowly, carefully. "You told me it was just a concept, just an idea you liked." Ryan's face was pale now. His lips parted like he was about to speak, but no words came out. Sophie folded her arms, cool as ever. "He told me you were just a jeweler," she said. "That you helped him finalize the design he gave you." Liar. It hit me like a slap. The betrayal wasn't just in what he did. It was in how he erased me from my own creation. He didn't just steal the design. He stole the story. My story. My name. My work. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. Ryan turned to me, finally speaking, fast and panicked. "Wanda, I didn't mean for it to be like this. I didn't think she'd show up. You didn't—" "What?" I asked, my voice low, shaking. "Didn't think I'd find out? Didn't think I'd recognize my own art on my own finger?" He stepped toward me, and I stepped back. Gasps again. Even the caterer froze, holding a tray of shrimp skewers mid-air. Sophie, never breaking her poise, added one final blow. "He was still calling me at night 2 months ago," she said, begging me to come back. "That ring? That was supposed to bring me home." My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't cry. Not here. Not now. But something inside me cracked, loud and clean, like glass under pressure. I looked at Ryan, really looked at him. The man who made me feel like I was the most beautiful thing in his life, when all along I was just a replacement, a placeholder, a tribute to someone else. The ring was heavy on my hand. Too heavy. So, I took it off. Held it up. And dropped it into a champagne glass. The sharp plink echoed louder than the music ever had. Then I walked out the door, through the stunned crowd, through the flash of a phone camera, through the sound of Ryan calling my name. And I didn't look back. The air outside was sharp and cold, but I didn't care. I kept walking. Down the driveway. Past the glowing garden lanterns. Past the car I'd arrived in. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Then I heard her voice behind me. "Wanda, wait." I stopped, not because I wanted to, because I needed answers. Sophie walked up slowly. She didn't look smug now. She looked tired, a little sad, like someone who'd seen this scene play out before, just with a different ending. "I'm not here to fight you," she said. I wasn't even sure I'd come, but after I saw the invite online, I had to see for myself. I turned to face her. You said the ring was meant for you. She nodded. It was. Ryan came to me with the design months before we broke up, told me he wanted to propose, said he was finally ready to commit. Then why did you leave? I asked, barely able to keep the edge out of my voice. Because I found out he was lying, she said simply. About work, about money, about where he was at night. I caught him in small things first, little inconsistencies. Then I found messages, half-truths, excuses. My stomach clenched. He told me he was just figuring things out, she continued. That he loved me. That I just had to wait. But I realized I was loving someone who was only ever giving me half of himself, and I'm not built for halves. I said nothing. I left before he could give me that ring, she added. Before he could put a promise on my finger that I couldn't believe in. There was a long silence between us. The wind picked up. And then, she said softly, a few months later, I saw a picture online. Him, you, laughing together. I figured it out. My mouth was dry. You think I knew? No, Sophie said. I think you were... Next, the word hung in the air like a stone. Next, like a line, like a list, like I was just the next woman he could pour his rehearsed lines into. I'm sorry, she said. Really, you didn't deserve to find out like this, but you should know, he loved me, or thought he did. But when I wouldn't take the lies, when I wouldn't let him rewrite the truth, he moved on. Fast. I stared at her. I thought I was special, I said quietly. He made me feel seen, safe. Sophie's expression softened. So did I. And the ring. He didn't design that. You did. But he wanted something beautiful to give meaning to a relationship already rotting underneath. You made the symbol. He just tried to recycle it. That was the worst part somehow. Not that he lied, not even that he repurposed a ring, but that he took something I created from love and used it to sell an illusion. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to breathe. I was just a replacement, I said, and it wasn't a question. Sophie didn't argue. She didn't soften the blow, maybe because she knew I needed the truth clean and sharp. I think he needed someone who didn't know yet. Someone new. Someone who'd believe the best in him because they hadn't seen the worst. That was me. Always believing the best. I didn't cry. Not then. Just stood there, under the cold moonlight, feeling my old life, the dream of it, falling away like ash. You deserve more, Sophie said. We both do. Then she turned and walked back toward the lights, leaving me alone in the dark with the truth. And maybe, finally, the beginning of something real. The music had stopped. Or maybe I'd just stopped hearing it. I walked back into the house like a ghost, the laughter and clinking glasses fading behind me. People were talking, dancing, smiling, completely unaware that the fairy tale had already ended. I found Ryan in the hallway, still holding a champagne flute, his tie loosened, his face pale. When he saw me, he straightened up, hopeful, nervous. Wanda, he said. Like my name could still fix this. I didn't say anything at first, just reached for his hand and placed something cold and heavy into it. The ring, the one I designed, the one he used to lie to both of us. His fingers curled around it reflexively. I looked him in the eyes, steady and calm. Give it to whoever you're really proposing to, I said. And it's not me. His mouth opened, ready to explain, to excuse, but I didn't let him speak. I turned and walked away. No yelling, no tears, just silence and the sharp sound of my heels on the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Sophie step into the hallway. I didn't look back. But I could feel her gaze shift from me to him. I didn't need to see her face to imagine it. Cold, disappointed, done. Still trying to sell the same lie with a different name? She asked quietly. Ryan said nothing. She let out a bitter laugh. Pathetic. And then, just like me, she walked out. Past him. Past the guests. Out the front door. The last thing I saw before I stepped outside was Ryan standing alone under the chandelier, still holding the ring like it might explain something, or fix it. But it didn't. It never would. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and fresh starts. I sat by the window, laptop open, heart oddly light. A week ago, I'd been sobbing into a pillow, wondering how I could have been so blind. Now? I was sketching again. Not for someone else. Not for a boutique. For me. My own line. Wanda. Simple, bold, mine. I'd launched the site 2 days ago. Barely finished, barely branded. I'd posted one teaser on Instagram paired with a simple caption. He proposed with a ring I designed for his ex. I walked away. And now I'm designing for women who never want to be someone's replacement again. I didn't expect what came next. Overnight, the post exploded. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Women, strangers, DMing me with their own stories, their heartbreaks, their brave exits. Thank you for saying it out loud. I wore a ring that was meant for someone else, too. I left. And I've never looked back. It was overwhelming and beautiful. The next day, an email hit my inbox. A boutique in San Francisco wanted to carry my first collection. They loved the story. They loved the meaning. They loved me. I closed the laptop slowly, tears stinging my eyes, not from pain this time, but something else. Relief, pride, real joy. Later that evening, I returned home to my apartment. Still quiet, still mine. My tools were spread out on the kitchen table. Sketches taped to the walls, loose stones catching the light like tiny stars. I picked up a design I'd been working on for days. A ring, of course. But not for romance. For reclaiming. For resilience. A sunrise motif. Woven in rose gold. Delicate. Strong. Like me. I soldered the final piece in place, held it up to the light, and smiled. The ring wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I worked in silence. No music, no background buzz, just the soft hum of the tools and the slow, steady beat of my own breath. The new design sat in front of me, rough at first, just pencil strokes and lines of emotion. But it was coming to life. It wasn't about hearts, or diamonds, or romance this time. No intricate swirls, no soft petals. This was something else. A band of brushed gold, firm and clean. A single stone. Not a diamond, but moonstone. Milky and luminous. Symbol of clarity, of quiet power. This ring wasn't for promises made or broken. It was for me. I soldered the band closed, my fingers steady. Sanded it smooth. Polished the edges until they gleamed. Then I held it up. It wasn't flashy. It wouldn't make anyone gasp. But it was strong and honest, and that made it beautiful. I slid it onto a fine gold chain and fastened it around my neck. It rested right above my heart. Exactly where it belonged. That evening, I stepped out into the city. The streets glowed with the last breath of sunset. People bustled past, laughing, calling out, lost in their own lives. I didn't need to rush. I didn't need to be seen. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't performing. I walked past the jewelry boutique where I used to work, past the bar where Tiff and I had cried and laughed, past the restaurant where I once said yes to a man who didn't know who I was. And I kept going. My ring bounced gently with each step. Not his, not hers, not anyone else's. Mine. He gave me a ring meant for someone else. So I made one just for me.